And welcome to another edition of the Hutchinson Report Town Hall of the Air. I'm your host, Earl O'Farrell Hutchinson. Okay, we've got, where's A.H. Hoffman?
Here
A.H.
I
Hoffman.
am.
Okay, we got a hot one today. A little bit different format today. Typically what we do on the Hutchinson Report Town Hall of the Air is it's me bloviating, beating up on A.H. Hoffman, and anybody else I can beat up on. Well, today we're not going to go there with that. We'll put that aside until next go around. We've got a topic today, A.H. Hoffman, as you well know, that has been front and center in many communities throughout the nation, but especially in Los Angeles, and even more particularly South Los Angeles, and even more particularly the Crenshaw District in South L.A. Now, I want you to talk, A.H. Hoffman, a little bit about what we're going to be doing today, and then when we come back to me after a little musical interlude, we'll introduce our panelists. Take it away.
Okay, as Earl said, good morning and welcome to the Hutchinson Report Town Hall of the Air. We are going to be weighing in on gentrification.
And welcome back to the Hutchinson Report Town Hall of the Air. As A.H. Hoffman said, we're going to be talking about gentrification and development. Is it a threat? Let me give a little context for it. I got a call, actually an email, some weeks ago from, and I'm not too far where I live. I live in the Windsor Hills section, which is not too far from Park Mesa. So I got a phone call and then a couple of emails saying there's going to be a big new development going in. I happen to know the corner, by the way, when I looked at it, 57th and Bryanhurst. A good friend of mine lived right on the corner. I said, God, are they moving him out too? But anyway, yet another development in the Crenshaw District. Now, for our Facebook live stream audience, there's a group called the Coalition to Preserve L.A. Overdevelopment Battle. When you really look, it's almost frightening. All over the city, parts of the Valley, the West Side, and South L.A., all the new development, not so new and old, and planned development projects. I have to tell you, you need a scorecard on this one. South L.A. is right in the front lines, so to speak. Now, we did invite the city councilman, Mr. Harris Dawson, who represents that district. We did invite him down. We also invited Herb Wesson, who represents another district, and who's also running for L.A. County Supervisor. We always extend the invitation on the Hutchinson Report to hear the other side and respond to their constituents, which, by the way, they should. But having said that, I'm going to read first one thing that Marquise Harris Dawson had to say about development. It would take a community that suffered from disinvestment for generations and make that problem even worse. It would keep the area, quote, stuck in the development rut that we've been in for so many years. So this is what he had to say, and of course much more. Basically what he's saying, we need a development. We need more. And we heard a lot of arguments. We're going to hear them today. Anyway, I want to welcome my panelists today to the Hutchinson Report Town Hall. And we're going to be talking a lot about that. 920 or 922, we'll open up the phones, let you have your say. Shawn Davis, welcome to the Hutchinson Report, representing families of Park Mesa Heights. And we have Justin Bradley, Community Outreach Organizer for Strategic Actions for a Just Economy. Boy, do we need that more than ever. And we also have Kenia Alcocer, who's an organizer for Unions Vecinos, East Side Local of the L.A. Tenants Union. Welcome to the Hutchinson Report, one and all. Justin, let's start with you.
Okay.
Here's the argument that we hear over and over when the issue of development comes up, and we've certainly heard it in the Crenshaw District too. Actually, there's many arguments. Number one, we need more development because we need affordable housing. Number two, we got a housing crisis. We got to build. We got to put people somewhere. Number three, if we have things like rent control or if we kind of put a check on development with all of these restraints, developers won't invest. They won't do any of these things. So we're left out in the cold. I know you hear these arguments over and over again. Your response?
Well, here's what I would say. I would say, one, we need development, but we need development without displacement. And I think that's the key and more important issue that's reflective of the larger Los Angeles community, is that development is necessary in some aspects, right? But when you have development that displaces community members who've been living there for years, or displaces community members who are just trying to make it by and do what they, doing everything the right way, that's an issue. And I think a lot of the times those who speak that we need development, they dangle that, oh, we're doing development for affordable housing as like the face of it. But in all reality, once the development occurs, the affordable housing argument kind of goes underneath and goes away. So it's just the common show and tell trick, right? So to answer your question, I think the best way that we can aid in really ensuring that development happens in a more in a way that's based in justice and true equity. I think one, you have to have decent and well-known prominent organizations who are championing and fighting on behalf of community members, as well as involving community members themselves about what they want their community to look like and what type of development they want to go in their community. I know Strategic Actions for a Just Economy, we're an organization that focuses in on that. We are community-oriented. The mission statement of SAGE is to build community power and leadership through economic justice.
Shawn, now Park Mesa, you're now front and center, almost on the front line. A big new development project is planned. A little context, my understanding is that many of the residents in the area have actually gone down to the LA City Planning Commission. I don't know about protests, but you've gone down there to voice your concerns, picking up on what Justin said about citizen input. How much citizen input do you really get when you go to these planning commissions, as you've gone to? The thinking is oftentimes, Justin and Rania, that basically these are just rubber stamps. They're going to do it anyway. You're just there to be heard. But at the end of the day, we rubber stamp that. It's going to go forward. When you went down and the residents of the area went down, what was the response? Fill us in on that.
Completely different. When we went down, we actually did a peaceful protest where we set up people at each corner with our little signs saying, hey, no to TOC, transit-oriented community developments, and no to all the other things, the SB 50s, SB 330s that are coming down the lane, and they received us. They actually were happy to see us, I have to say. I think sometimes the councilmen, because of the decisions they may have made in the past, is not looked upon as if they can do anything for us now. But when we showed up, there was only actually about 9 or 10 of us that spoke to the different aspects of the developments and how it impeded in our lives and how it was acceptable that somebody could just come into our community, our safe zone, and decide that they were going to put up this.
How big, by the way, how big is the project?
The project is right now, as it stands, it's 5 stories, 33 unit, no parking on a block of 10 houses on each side. Right there at Crenshaw and Bryanhurst, where there is a body shop and there's a tire shop that already impedes on that parking. So for them to come in and say that that was acceptable, it was like, no, shame on you. It is not acceptable. And who would think to come and disrespect such an oasis? We have areas, I call it the 4 squares. We have areas within that community where it fits that development, which is actually directly across the street. But this one particular developer, and he has gone back to the drawing board, is my understanding, because of what we did, because it forced him to reassess that he needed to connect with our community, because this TOC literally backdoors us. It tells us that, all it tells the community is that, look, we're going to post it on your councilman's website, and it's up to you to read. What do they always say, unfortunately, for us as Black people especially? When you want to do something, hide it in a book where we'll never read it. Well, guess what? The new book is the councilman's website.
I love that one. Kenia, the unions, Vecinos, East Side Local, the LA Tenants Union, the last year, actually more than that, we've heard one slogan over and over again. The rents are too damn high. Let me repeat that again. The rents, it's a great slogan, by the way. The rents are too damn high. Tenants union, we keep hearing over and over again, it goes like this. We need more development because we'll set aside a certain percentage for affordability, i.e. always kind of very fluid what this affordability is, but be that as it may, 15%, 20%, so forth. And the thinking is by doing that, that will bring more housing, more affordability. It will bring the rents down. How do you respond to that when you hear that?
Well, first of all, I think one of the things that we need to really discuss is development for who. And what kind of development is it that we need in our communities? And that really brings us to a place where if we're talking to community members and if we're really organizing communities, some of these communities say we don't need these huge affordable housing buildings that they're building. In Boyle Heights, we've been stripped from a lot of our communities. We have First and Soto, we have the Mariachi Plaza, where buildings have been built that it's affordable housing, but not affordable to the community that lives in this community. So that is one big issue when we're talking about affordability. We're not really talking about affordable for who. The other thing that there is a myth of a scarcity of housing, and that is something that we really need to fight back against. We have buildings in downtown LA that are majority empty. This is luxury housing that it's majority empty, and we have all these developers that have been building a lot of this luxury housing, and it's empty. We have housing. What we don't have is the political will to house people. Through the 2008 recession, we have in South Central a lot of housing that has been repossessed by banks and are boarded up and are empty. And we have housing for folks who are low income and who are homeless if we really wanted to solve the issue of housing. The reality is that there is no political will to help poor people and dispossessed people. And that is the fight against the city, and that is the fight against our politicians, is that the reality is when they're talking about development, these developers are putting a lot of money into our politics. These developers are really engaging with these politicians and getting them elected. Politicians are not interested in listening to the community and to tenants, specifically, who are the ones that are being most affected through all these development talks. In Boyle Heights, we had the Gold Line that it's now passing through our community, which wasn't something that was necessary for our community. We lost 2 bus routes that were essential for our communities to get to work. Now community members have to pay more for bus fares to get to their work. So when we're talking about development, I really want to question, it's like, what kind of development and how?
And for who?
And for whom?
Yeah.
Okay, let's bring this in too. Gentrification. That's a hot button topic now. So let's piggyback on that. Development for who? Because that's a common theme. Who is coming in? Who is this, whether it's affordable or not, or even unaffordable, which most of it is. The fact of the matter is the neighborhoods are changing. We have seen that. The ethnic demographics of the neighborhoods are changing. Developers are not just throwing things in here to get tax write-offs, so that's a big part of it too. They're also looking very closely, as one told me, we're going to market this to a high-tech folk or high-tech guy. That's what he said. I'm just putting my words in. We're going to market this new development to high-tech people on the west side. Translated, we're not talking about you. We're talking about someone else. We know, I think, who the someone else is. So, Shawn, Kenia, and Justin, let's talk about gentrification. What impact does it have now when you actually can't live in your own community, buy in your own community, rent in your own community, whether it's affordable or not, and you see a different, let's say, demographic coming in? Does that have some say positive, raising property values, we keep hearing that, but others say negatives. What's your take on it?
I feel it's negative due to the factor it doesn't raise our property value. Right now, just in Mesa Heights area, our property, which I'm in real estate, it's not worth 1.5. It's not worth 1.2 on Bryanhurst right now. When you have a house in View Park, that's 1.5. I get that they're trying to make money or try to, quote unquote, beautify our areas, but at the end of the day, that's not what they're doing. Only 10 to 15% of those affordable properties are allocated to us. So say, for instance...
And by the way, a little clarification on that, because we keep hearing that, and people ask me this all the time. Okay, the mandate is in the city, presumably the county is, I keep hearing that 10 to 15, sometimes I've heard 20%. Mm-hmm. I also know the backstory that many people don't know. Let's say, Shawn, you qualify with the guidelines, quote unquote affordability. You come in, you get one of the apartments or units. Let's say in 6 months, a relative lives in another state, they become ill, I've got to move there, I've got to do something, I've got to vacate that. What people don't know is, at that point, it's not unaffordable anymore, it goes up to market rates. I just wanted to throw that in, but continue.
That's correct. Unfortunately, like I said, our community is being stolen from us, and it totally just breaks my heart. I feel right now like we're in Roots, where you know how they came to where Toby was, dangled the little silver coin, and because we as people have not had the ability to make or experience wealth to another level, we see this silver coin and we're like, oh my God, let me get it, you know, and then before you know it, when you turn back, your whole land is destroyed. That's what's going on with us right now.
You know, Justin, okay, I know you want to come in on this, but quick thought on this, and also Kenia too. Back on the issue of dangling this in front of us, our community changing, which it is, by the way. Mm-hmm. You mentioned before about elected officials. And, Shawn, you actually did go down with the Planning Commission. Now, can I take from that there is now a new level of responsiveness from some elected officials? Yes. Are they hearing it?
Yeah.
Because they've been tone deaf before.
Oh, yeah.
Giving the company store away to any developer that comes in, dangles a few dollars in front of them. Mm-hmm. Are you saying now that there may be a little bit of a sea change with politicians?
Yeah, I mean, I think the pressure is definitely there, and again, that's why I pointed back to I think there's some great.
And we
work.
got some elections coming up too.
Some,
let's not forget that.
There's some great.
Let's see after the elections.
Yes,
but go ahead.
Great. I mean, so election season, you know, everyone kind of comes out and says what needs to be said, but there's a lot of great community organizations, community activists, organizers doing a lot of great work and doing their part in putting pressure on city council, putting pressure on elected officials to really address and talk about these issues and do something. So, you know, just this was a couple weeks ago, but I believe it's the Board of Supervisors. They just passed rent control for the Los Angeles County. So obviously the Los Angeles City has had rent control since 1978, but now the Los Angeles County has a permanent form of rent control.
And of course the state of California too.
Yes, right.
Just recently.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that shows you the importance in the progress that's being made. However, it's so much more progress that still needs to be made.
We keep hearing that displacement a lot. Now we come to this, you know, the issue of displacement and culture. One of the things when we talk about gentrification, whether it's on the east side, whether it's in South LA, we keep hearing this. Our communities, whether it be primarily Hispanic, old Hispanic going back in time, African American going back in time, like parts of South LA, you know, there was a cultural cohesion. There was always an upside. We know the downside of segregation, but in a kind of warped, perverse way, there was a bit of an upside, too. The continuity was there. The closeness was there. Kind of sharing, you know, protecting was there, building businesses. All of that was there. So the sense now is you lose that. And I know East L.A. has been torn apart, I mean, over the last decades, really. So now you're battling back now. Is it really just to preserve the cultural cohesion, or is there much more at stake here, Kenia?
For us, it's much more at stake. I mean, one of the things that Boyle Heights has been particularly going through, it's this new notion of developers trying to come in and call it the new arts district, where we're getting a lot of more galleries into our neighborhoods. But with the fight back against the community fighting back, now we're getting a lot of these galleries actually leaving our communities. The reality is that communities are coming together and pushing back in ways that are more significant. And even people call them violent, which I strongly disagree, because gentrification itself is economic violence against poor communities. And this is one of the things that we need to really understand. It's that there is violence every time a family is being pushed out of their communities when that family doesn't know if they're going to have housing the next day. That is violence. The fact that a child does not have stability to know if they're going to be able to continue their education at the school and the community that they've been going to, that it's violence. So for us, it's really making sure that we understand that gentrification, it's a violent process against a lot of these communities, and displacement's also violent. And also having a clear understanding of where these families are being pushed to, because it's not to other LA part areas. A lot of these families are being pushed to the Inland Empire, where...
I got news for you. A lot of these families are being pushed to the street.
Well, to the streets, but also like you see a lot of them being pushed out either to the Inland Empire, to Lancaster. I have community members that have even gone to Bakersfield. Like they're being pushed to the peripheries of the city of LA, where they're no longer able to stay within the city, in areas where there is no rent control, where there is no tenant protections, in areas where sometimes services are even lacking. So like that is one of the things that we also like are trying to understand and figure out, like how do we protect our communities, but also how do we keep fighting back against the displacement of the communities, and how do we keep changing the narrative, because that's also something that it's very important. It's not people's faults.
Shawn.
Okay. To speak to that, when we went down to the city council, that was something that we spoke to. And at the end of the day, because we showed up strong, and strong was actually about 25 people in at City Hall. And what we did was, like I said, we spoke to the families of Park Mesa Heights. And what that is, and let me give a little backstory on us. We're 3 groups located in sectors, located within the 90043 zip code. It is Angeles Mesa, it is Hyde Park, and it's View Heights. And what we did was, like I said, we went down and we spoke our piece, and they heard us. And at the end of the day, what you're asking, what can you get out of it? We got an interim control ordinance that put a halt on everything that allowed the system to the developers to come in and just develop, especially on our inskirts of our residential community. So, and what we were encouraged to do at the end of the day was to encourage you guys to do the same thing. They're bounded by the laws, and they're bounded by only what's presented to them. But if you as a community constantly show up to every meeting, there's a meeting on Tuesday, there's a meeting on Wednesday, there's a meeting on Friday. If you guys show up, if every area that's encountered and dealing with this situation show up and speak up, they're forced to address the laws. Not only that, you also have to, we're dealing at it at a city level, but these are, once again, laws that are impacting us. The laws are made at Capitol Hill. So we also have to go and address them where they are.
If you're just tuning in now to the Hutchinson Report Town Hall there, we're talking about not only gentrification, development, we'll get into homelessness too, rent control, tenants' rights. It all really, when you really look at it, it's all part of the same problem, part of the same package. We have to deal with all of them. It's a holistic problem. Shawn Davis, representing families of Park Mesa Heights. Justin Bradley, Community Outreach Organizer, Strategic Actions for a Just Economy. Kenia, Alcocer, Organizer, the Union's Vecinos, Eastside Local, the LA Tenants Union. We invited Councilperson Herbert Wesson. We invited Councilperson Marquise Harris Dawson. We always extend the invitations to them because they need to hear that. They're the elected officials in that area that's impacted, directly impacted. So the invitation was out there. We certainly know that in the past, anyway, these officials have been extremely pro-development. We know that. We also have someone on the line now before we take a quick break. We just want to get him in for a couple of minutes. Thomas Loftin, gentrification expert, author of Monetizing Gentrification Solutions. Thomas, welcome to the Hutchinson Report. How are you?
I'm great. Yourself?
Okay, now you've written the book. You've done a lot on gentrification. I don't know if you had a chance to listen so far to our discussion from our panelists here, Justin, Shawn, and Kenia. And we've been talking about an issue, of course, that you've written about, and I know you've been on the point with. So here's a question, really. It always comes up. In a nutshell, if you had to weigh this on a scale of maybe 1 to 5, even 1 to 10, gentrification, whether it's South LA, whether it's Harlem, whether it's Philly, whether it's Detroit, whether it's my old neck of the woods, south side of Chicago, we see it all over the country. Has there been any benefits at all for the communities where we have seen gentrification taking a hold?
Only for the ones who are carpenters. the ones who are developers, the people who got smart and decided to invest and buy the land, buy up these vacant commercial buildings all across the country, buy up these boarded up homes in Atlanta and South Carolina, they're making off like bandits. They're creating wealth right now. So I've been going on tour telling people, roll your children into carpentry. You want them to be wealthy? Roll them into carpentry. For the next 4 to 8 years, it's going to be raining money in construction. So those people, anybody in real estate is doing very well. But anybody outside, no.
So, in other words, there's so much downside that we've heard all the critics talk about gentrification, the bad things for the community. But, developers come in and say, hey, look, if we're not building in these communities, I mean, they've been sitting there for years. I mean, they've been deteriorating. They've been falling apart. Businesses not there. Housing, collapsing. We see all that now. Hey, we're coming in. We're making money. I mean, it's a capitalist society, but at the same time, we're providing a service. That's the line that we hear. That's the argument we hear over and over again, and affordability too.
Well, see, that's all politics because we got black developers, African American developers. We have a local developer called the Bedford Group. They've been sitting on the shelf fighting, trying to get construction permits for years in in View Park. They put black developers on the back burner and give us a hard time from trying to do construction. But then when they come in and they do the same thing to them, they start crying out and saying these things, and they give them permits. But we still got African-American developers that are still waiting for permits from 5 and 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm. So, a final thing, I'm just pass a note here. Orange County has new construction that's 100% affordable housing. Really? Well, that apparently then you've got some elected officials in Orange County that get it, that understand. Look, if you're going to build this, and by the way, it's a myth too, and I think, Tom, that you'll agree, probably panelists too, you can actually build housing, 100% affordability, and make a buck off of it. It's a myth that developers they'll go bankrupt if they have to put up luxury high-rises, for the rich and the famous. This is simply not true. It's bunkum.
It really is a myth, purely based on the fact that we can take this one thing. Los Angeles County has over 15,000 pieces of property that it itself owns, between land all the way down to vacant commercial buildings, of which they bait developers into the areas by saying, hey, we'll give you that 5 acres over there off of such and such street if you just come over here and build. We'll give you that abandoned commercial building that we own. And then you got to look at the fact that the cities are taking people's properties by the day. You got old people who pass away and their houses go untaken and the city ends up with them. The city's passing all kind of laws saying that this is not permitted. You can't have that bedroom, that garage converted into a bedroom. So they fine these people. They're creating a lot of laws to take people's homes from them. And like I said, the city owns a lot of property that they can give to developers, that they can say, build, this land is free. Normally it'd be worth $1.9 million, but we're going to give it to you free so you can build affordable housing. So I always say, when people go into those town hall meetings, I say we got a room full of a lot of people with good intentions, but they're asking all the wrong questions. They should be bringing up topics like the ones I just brought up. But I say they're uneducated and they don't know what they're asking or what they're saying.
Well, you know what? That's why the Hutchinson Report Town Hall, we're doing this and we're going to keep doing this. We're running up against the time. We got so many people, Tom, that do want to get in on this, and we're going to get them in. Your book, Monetizing Gentrification Solutions, where can those that are interested, and hopefully anybody would be interested, where can they pick that up?
They can go to my website, to thomastjloftin.com. That's Thomas T.J. Loftin, Loftin, or they can reach out to me at area code 310-619-3954. Again, 310-619-3954.
All right, thanks again. Thomas J. Loftin, gentrification, an expert on that, and boy, do we need the experts in action, too, on all this expertise. Author of Monetizing Gentrification Solutions. 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK. All right, so you hear that. Real estate, money. It always comes down to money, but I submit this. You can do development in several ways. One, you can do it that's planned, where you have citizen resident input. because if you're talking about a democratic process, you just can't come in and say we're going to put, and we see it all over the city, these humongous developments right in the middle of residential areas. So now you're rezoning an area. How do you do that? And nobody knows anything about that. The other thing is, if it's going to be there, we already mentioned Orange County, where you can actually build affordable housing that's compatible with an area. I think that's another issue. It's got to be compatible with an area. So, Shawn, Justin, Kenia, if you were the czar and you had complete power over how to go into an area that is underserved, and admittedly, we need to have, whether we're talking about certainly Boyle Heights, parts of East LA, I don't think anybody's against plan, program, intelligent, strategic development that actually benefits the community, and there's every step of the way citizen input into the planning of it. You're the czar. How do you make that happen?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can make that happen. Honestly, I would really follow in the steps of Nipsey Hussle. That's what he was aiming to do over there on Slauson and Crenshaw. Mm-hmm. That is exactly what he was aiming to do, and that comes just with a respected reputation. It comes with respect for the people who live in that community. It comes with really truly understanding and identifying yourselves with that community. I grew up in Long Beach, California, right? So I'm not from Slauson and Crenshaw, but you know, I would know if I were to go in, let's say that area, right? Let's say somewhere like specifically like Dorset Village, and there was a process of wanting to develop the place, develop the area. I alone know I can't achieve that. I have to identify those in the community who are feeling those same way and want to connect and organize together to make that happen. So I think it comes with a lot of just kind of really humbling yourself and really understanding that it's okay to work with other people and it's okay to develop it for those and have it reflected for those who have lived there the longest.
And that's the key, working
Yes.
with other people. The problem with that is we got all the money and we got the power and we got the politicians in our hip pocket. We don't need you. So, Shawn, you're saying, no, that's not true. And we showed that. You showed that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly. And, you know, and from my standpoint, what I would rather do if I was given the opportunity was do what retired Congressman Barron did in New York, where he took the median income of the people and made the max rent according to the cost of living. I mean, what their income was what they based their rents off of. So that's what I would do. I mean, because at the end of the day, look at what they're doing on Adams. Adams right now, they're cutting our large, comfortable places in half, 300 square feet for a studio, and they're charging $2,950. That's somebody's salary. Okay, now let's take that, bring it over to Bryanhurst. If that particular developer ran with that same MO, which in actuality his layout is pretty much the same as the one that was on Adams, and if he would have only made 33 studios. $2,950 times 33, that's $90,750 that he'd be making off of our community. Keep in mind that just to develop that particular property, what they're doing is they're financing half of that, and our taxpayer money is what's financing the rest. Mm-hmm. So shame on them for them just coming into our community and just doing what they think they can do. But look at how our buildings are structured right now. Everything is uniform. Keep it that way. Respect what it is. Get in contact with the community and see what they need and see how we can work together to bring, what it is that the community needs. Because at the end of the day, we have to live whatever you lay out.
Kenia, you're doing a lot of that in East LA and in Boyle Heights, too. Community
Yes.
actually coming, stepping forward, saying enough is enough, but actually not just protesting, actually putting specific things on the table. Look, how about considering these alternatives?
Well, for us, it's very, very clear. We
always say we're always negative, but no, it's not true.
Nope. We have 140 poor and low-income folks, 140 million poor and low-income folks in the United States. That's the number. And that number comes from the studies that the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for more revival, has been doing. One of the things that we need to have a clear understanding is that we need to get rid of the notion that housing is a commodity. And that our natural resources are our commodity. And the reason why, it's because we need to increase, and part of our demands is right now there's a national attack against public housing. There's a national attack against any type of public housing. They're trying to privatize it.
Yeah.
Our demand is we need more public housing. Folks in public housing only pay 30% of their income into housing. That is what everybody should be doing. Unfortunately, a lot of our community members are paying 70 to 80% of their income into housing. So in order for us to really change and have people that have a life with dignity and that can actually survive and not just, they don't have to survive. They can actually live a livable life. That means that we need to start thinking about how are we going to bring back these programs that are supporting poor and low-income folks. And that is with more of public housing and making sure that our government, it's ensuring that people have their basic needs.
Let me do this. We're going to take a quick break. By the way, Charles Barron, Assembly person Charles Barron in New York that was referenced before, and his wife, City Council person, she's on the City Council in New York, Inez Barron, they will not rubber stamp any, I repeat, they will not rubber stamp any development project that any developer that comes in, I think that's in East Harlem or East Brooklyn, I'm not sure, area. They won't rubber stamp that routinely like they do and have done here in L.A. unless there's a strict provision that a certain percentage has to be affordable. Almost all of it has to be affordable. They will not sign off on that. When I saw that, they call it the Barron Plan, I said, wouldn't that be nice to have a city council person, a supervisor, or that unnamed official to have put their name like Barron did and say, I'm not going to rubber stamp anything in my district unless A, B, C, D, E, F, G, qualifications, regulations, and requirements are met, and we already know what they are. We're going to take a quick break, and we come right back. We're going to roll with the rest of the phone calls. Hutchinson here, our panelists, development, gentrification, you know the rest. We have about 2.5 minutes left, so we're going to have to wrap this up. If you just tune in, we're talking. By the way, the issue's not going to go away. It kills me. People think they have to get everything in. We're going to be continually talking about this, doing more shows. So don't feel that you got to get everything in 5 seconds. No, it's not going to go away. I wish it would go away, but the world doesn't work like that. We got 2 minutes left. Shawn.
You have to take advantage of your neighborhood council because they're your representation to the council, and your council are supposed to be your representative to the state. You have to push these seats and push them to let them be accountable for what they're elected to do. And, we all have to continue to do what every organization that's sitting around this table is doing, is pushing what it's called our rights. Because we do have a say, and if we stay quiet because we feel we don't have a voice, it's going to continue to go on. But the more you speak up, that's when results happen.
All right. I want to thank my panelists today. We're just absolutely out of time. But you know what? You know as well as I do, it's not going to go away. We'll be back again. We'll be continually talking about this issue and challenging, we keep hearing this, that unnamed elected officials and many other unnamed who will be named, by the way, at some point. We're going to start calling names.
Let me know.
No, we're not going to be polite. We're going to call you out on that. If you're not doing justice in the community, not listening to your constituents, and we have to remind people all the time, we're taxpayers. We pay for this development too, in many ways, through the back door and front door. So no. It's not their company store, it's our company store. You've been listening to the Hutchinson Report, Town Hall, the Air. Shawn Davis, Justin Bradley, Kenia Alcocer. I want to thank you, and most importantly,
thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you, Ricky. Thank you, Leroy. Thank you. Where's A.H. Hoffman? Get up from there, A.H. Hoffman. What are you doing? Where's Vino? Where's Wendell? Where's Oliver? Where's Earl? Where's John? Where's everybody? All right, until next week.